Everybody come see us on tour. We'll be in Columbus, Dayton, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Lexington, Kentucky, Burbank, California, and Honolulu. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.
Hey, folks, welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular this week, filling in for Jimmy. He is on the road. He's in Dayton, Ohio, Wednesday the 13th, Cleveland, Ohio on the 14th, and then Cincinnati at Go Bananas Comedy Club on the 15th and the 16th. So we want to do a little bit of media criticism here as we are now starting to see the lingering effects of the Trump landslide. And one that Mediaite noticed, MSNBC ratings crater as viewers tune out Trump victory coverage. MSNBC saw its audience crater on Thursday, just days after the left of center network beat CNN in election night ratings for the first time ever. Thursday's total average daily viewers on Fox News came in at 2.6 million and 375,000 in the coveted 25 to 54 age demographic, according to Nielsen data. Meanwhile, MSNBC brought in only 596,000 total viewers and 71,000 in the demo. CNN brought in 419,000 total viewers on Thursday and 91,000 viewers in that core demo. Fox News was up some 60% year over year for the day, while MSNBC and CNN were down 23 and 40% respectively. Now, think of that, because don't forget, last year there was no presidential election on November 5th. Right. So like last year, people weren't hooked into the news in the aftermath of a presidential election. This is supposed to be
Christmas for these businesses.
This is supposed to be Christmas. You're not supposed. This is not down 23 and 40% over last presidential cycle at this time. This is last year when there was no national election, no midterms, no nothing. In prime time, the news was even more bleak for CNN and MSNBC as they shed 30% and 54% of their viewers, respectively, compared to the same day last year. This is right after an election. You're down those numbers over a year where there was no election, no national election. MSNBC host Alex Wagner had her lowest rating show ever in terms of total viewers, while Chris Hayes' show brought in its worst number since May of 2016. Wow. That's 8 years. 8 years. Fox News also dominated election night with over 10.3 million average viewers from 8 to 11 p.m., further extending the network's long reign atop the cable news industry. On Tuesday night, MSNBC scored an impressive 6 million average viewers, which was enough to eclipse CNN's 5.1. So yeah, on election night, they were into it. CNN, long time the home for breaking news events, saw its audience nearly halve since 2020 when it brought in 9.6 million average total viewers during election night. MSNBC's inability to keep its audience tuned in throughout the week signals a potential mood shift on the left. Yeah, I would say so, as hope for a Kamala Harris victory has quickly soured into defeat and anxiety while awaiting Donald Trump's return to power in January. Overall television viewership of election night was down significantly from 2020, some 25% across the 18 major news networks measured by Nielsen. The 42.3 million viewers who tuned in to either broadcast or cable news on Tuesday night represent those Americans who have yet to fall prey to cord cutting and other trends shifting viewers away from linear TV. So, we had our own version of this kind of occur in our space. That David Pakman video went kind of viral where he panicked that he was losing a bunch of subscribers after the Kamala loss. And now he claims to have since gotten them all back. I remember back in November of 2004, which was the last time that I was really invested heavily in a presidential election that didn't go my way. I was all in for Obama both times in 2008 and 2012. He won both of those. And then by 2016, I have not really cared either way ever since. But I remember what it was like to lose that election to George W. Bush. I remember waking up the next day and saying, this is me, who now, 20 years later, does this for a living, saying, I'm done. I'm not following politics anymore. That's it. it is a crushing feeling to lose an election that you feel is that high stakes and lose it as convincingly as John Kerry lost that one. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Kerry lost that election. It ended up coming down to Ohio in the Electoral College, but he lost the popular vote by quite a bit. And I remember just falling into a despair that eventually you dig yourself out of. And I think a lot of these viewers will be back. But there's no question that the networks have taken a hit. And what may signal a difference in this event is that part of the narrative, a big part of the narrative surrounding this election, is the rise of alternative media. And that was really the big question. One of the big questions that was going to determine the outcome is, what is the influence of spaces like this, the podcast space, the online space, the YouTube space, Spotify, Apple, versus the influence of legacy media? If you looked at the 2022 midterms, it was a much more conventional group of voters that ended up coming out, where you really got the sense that, no, as much as we feel like what we're doing here is important, CNN still's got us beat, MSNBC still has us beat. This time you really don't feel that way. This time you really feel like the influence of networks like CNN and MSNBC, and even Fox to a large extent, because now they're without Tucker Carlson. Right. They were on the winning side of this election, but still they don't have the cachet that they once did with him off the air. Right. You're really seeing a crisis of influence at these networks. Like, they really feel like they don't have the grip on the public that they once did. And especially now, the liberal incarnation of these networks in the wake of this defeat, they're going to be feeling the hurt for a while. And they don't have a Russiagate to spin now, because they don't have a narrative they can jump to. After 2016, because Hillary won the popular vote, because it was very, very close in a small handful of states that could have gone either way, the liberal legacy media still felt like they could seize hold of the resistance and steer it and shape it and make a lot of money doing it, which they did. They did all of those things. Mm-hmm. It's still early. We're less than a week out as of this recording from the result, but it just doesn't feel like that's going to happen again. It feels like this shift is going to be more lasting, away from outlets like that and towards the online space.
This is why they have, since 2016, been working so hard to crush alternative media. This is why they've written I think it was the New York Times that did that whole expose of people getting radicalized by YouTube. They've been doing everything they can to try to put the stink on these platforms in order to get friendly politicians, i.e., generally Democrats, almost exclusively, to crack down and pressure these platforms like YouTube, like Rumble, like TikTok. And they've been successful to some degree, but they haven't been able to shut them down. They're too profitable. They didn't. We speculated that they might just get rid of political programming. And who knows? If Kamala had won, maybe that would have actually happened. We won't know, but I feel we are skeptical of the overall commitments of the Trump administration to free speech across the board, particularly in regards to Israel and Palestine. But do we face the same kinds of dangers we saw in the Twitter files, where the government was essentially working through NGOs to do a backdoor censorship on these platforms? No, I think we kind of dodged that bullet with Donald Trump coming in. And it does feel like this battle that the legacy media has been fighting against the new media with this election, they lost. That's it. The jig is up. The game is over. You could argue that demographically they were always bound to lose that fight because their audience was 70 to dead. And eventually an audience that's 70 to dead winds up favoring the dead. So without new people coming in to watch that shit, and what young people is watching CNN? what young person is turning on.
Well, this is the thing. I
MSNBC.
mean, in a way, this shift, this election is really a lagging indicator in that sense, because we have seen a cultural shift away from legacy media for a long time. I mean, this cultural shift has been going on really. Basically since Facebook opened up to everyone as opposed to just for like college kids. I mean, really for 15 years has been going on. Slightly more, actually, dating myself there. But the question was, when will that shift reflect in election results? Because that's when it really starts influencing power. And it did this time. And that's why there's so much talk about the Trump-Joe Rogan thing. It's not that that's what put Trump over the top. This election was so sweeping that you can't point to one, two, or three things and say, but for this, it would have gone the other way.
They're trying, though.
But part of the emphasis
Racism
on the Rogan
sexism.
thing, but part of the emphasis on the Rogan appearance, part of why the media keeps talking about that is because the fact that Trump was able to get so many young men, frankly, so many, online consumers of media to the polls reflects that now what has been a cultural shift more than a decade in the making has now come to actually influence politics, because now there has been a campaign that was able to actually, take that group of people and get them to the polls. And boom, now you have a Trump term too. And like I said, his victory was large enough to the point where it wasn't just that did it. But that's something that, you believe me, the media took note of that. Sure. And that is reflected in, a lot of coverage about that Rogan thing.
I mean, at this point, I think they're done. They're doomed to irrelevance. You got an administration that's not friendly to them, that's not friendly to their interests at a time when the demographics for them are not good. Believe me, not good. So this is it. This is it. What? People, you were going to get people to keep listening to the radio after they got a TV? It's over. It's done. The media is going to move to here. You will have, and we already do have, outlets that are more like those kinds of news outlets, but they're hybrids who are basically on YouTube, who are basically on Rumble. You're going to see more outlets like Gray Zone that are kind of more traditional news oriented outlets full of journalists rather than commentators. Like you will see that. And it's to the good, I mean, it's a democratization of news gathering. And I think it has the potential to bring us back to what Taibbi has written so much about, that news gathering used to be the kind of province of working class gadfly kind of people. Now you got rid of that bar to entry. It got overrun by these Bob Woodward Ivy League types. And without these kinds of platforms, people like us, people like Jimmy, we never could have gotten into this space. They never would have let us.
Of course.
Everybody come see us on tour. We'll be in Columbus, Dayton, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Lexington, Kentucky, Burbank, California, and Honolulu. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.